management for about 15 years and then got a taste of Workday. And we implemented at HP Workday globally in just a matter of 18 months. And yes, I had the Workday bug. It did. While everyone was partying like it was 1999, we were working and making sure that all of our systems didn't implode because of that 4-digit year. It's empowering the system to support the process. And I drive that home each and every day. The system doesn't drive the process. The process drives the system. But I think having that Gen AI application or usage to be able to say, here's what it is today, here's what I want it to be tomorrow, now do that for me, instead of, now we have to backtrack. All right, how many org moves? How many soup orgs do we need to create? It takes like expertise from so many different teams. So being able to automate that and using Gen AI, there are so many applications, and we're just in the beginning of being able to identify those opportunities.
What is the connection between Y2K and employee experience? How do you land spending almost 3 decades in deep HR technology when you started out as a teacher? As an experienced HR tech professional, how does your daily look like? Welcome to another Employee Experience Labs podcast from the Munich Podcast studio. Employee Experience Labs podcasts are about HR tech, employee experience, shared services, and other interesting topics around HR at the workplace. We continue our new season from the Workbook of an HR leader, where I'm talking to experienced colleagues in our field about their daily working routine and what and how they are going about the various challenges they have to face each day. I'm a tireless believer that we can all be better if we learn from each other, but there are not many opportunities to actually do that. Yes, there are the conferences, but how often can you attend one in a year? And yes, there are peer-to-peer connections, but how many do you manage to keep running? I'm a firm believer that we can all do a better job. We learn from each other, and so I have invited seasoned HR experts from various fields and companies to tell us about their workday and how they go about the challenges of the day. And today I'm talking to Lisa Patton, VP of HR Technology at Otis. Lisa and I first met at one of these conferences and immediately thought that we must connect and exchange ideas and experiences. I always enjoyed talking to Lisa, and when you listen to the full episode, you will understand why. Lisa talks about her work with passion as well as a strong growth mindset, the best of two worlds. Lisa and I have talked about collaboration between HR and HR technology, strong guiding principles to get to a competitive tech stack, and of course, Gen AI. Lisa has tried and tested many different ideas on the way and therefore can provide her views and directions rooted deep in actual experience, which is great to learn. But why am I telling you about it anyways? Let's listen to Lisa, VP of HR Technology at Otis. Lisa, hello! It's so great to see you. I'm so excited to have you today on our podcast. It has been a while since we have spoken, but I always like to talk to you about, our topics of HR technology and experience. So it's lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and it's great to talk to you again. I remember the first time I ever heard you speak at Workday Rising in EMEA, and I said, I need to get to know that guy.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's not talk about when that was. It just dates us. Let's say it was yesterday.
Yesterday, yes.
Excellent. Lisa, before we get started, let's talk a bit about you. Who is Lisa? What's your background? What did you study? What experience do you have before you got to where you are now?
I actually went to university to study math and education. I thought I was going
Wow.
to change the world and teach our younger generation and help them to grow. And I learned quickly in my career that that was not the place for me. So, fast forward to a few years after my college graduation, there was this thing called the Y2K project.
Oh,
And
yes.
so I saw this application or this opportunity to work for a company and learn mainframe programming
Wow.
using the COBOL programming language. And so I
Wow.
took an aptitude test, scored off the charts, and decided that's what I want to do. I want to program in the mainframe to solve world problems that 2-digit year for the Y2K project.
Yeah.
So I did that. Of course, there was no longer a need for that after December 31st, 2000. And
2000.
so I started to get into project management. So I worked for EDS,
Hmm.
Electronic Data Systems, and they were
Yes.
acquired by HP. And so I did project management for about 15 years and
Mm.
then got a taste of Workday. And we implemented at HP Workday globally in just a matter of 18 months. And
Wow.
yes, I had the Workday bug after that. And that was back in 2014. So I was
Wow.
with HP until 2018 when I
Yeah.
moved to UTC,
Yeah.
United Technology Corporation,
Yeah.
where I was a security and governance lead.
Mhm.
And then we separated at UTC into three companies. UTC,
Mm.
which is now Raytheon
Yes.
Technologies, and Carrier and Otis. So Otis
Yes.
Elevator is where I landed back in 2020, where I've been in this position ever since as the Vice President of HR Technology. So today I lead an organization of about 25 people,
Mm.
and we're responsible for implementing and maintaining all of our global applications, which we use Workday for recruiting, for learning, core HCM, as well as ServiceNow.
Amazing, Lisa. And what I didn't know is that the same bug got us at the same time. My first true technology experience was also year 2K. It was a project back then. I was with IBM back then, and a few banks were nervous if their systems will survive the New Year's Eve. And
Yes.
so we were running towards making sure everything is ready and upgraded before that. And then, it was a non-event. However, it kept you and me in technology.
It did. While everyone was partying like it was 1999, we were working and making sure that
Yeah.
all of our systems didn't implode because of that 4-digit year.
Yeah. Wow. And you already talked a bit about Otis, and I have to say, I always think about you when I'm in an elevator. Maybe an Otis, or I think there are some other brands that we don't need to talk about. But I'm always talking about this, and I always think about this. Tell us a bit about Otis. How big is Otis? Where do you have employees in well, how many countries? What is how big is Otis?
So Otis, we have about 72,000 colleagues across 80 countries.
Wow.
Otis is the leading manufacturer of elevators, escalators, and moving walkways.
Yeah.
So 80 countries we
That's
have
amazing.
colleagues.
That's
And
great.
as I said before, Otis separated from UTC in
Yeah.
2020. So Otis has been around for over 100 years. But when we separated, we had the excitement of a great history of a
Mm.
company, and yet we were sort of like a
Fresh
startup
start. Yeah.
company. So it was very exciting.
Amazing. But I tell you, the complexity of 80 countries is something to deal with, hey?
Yes, absolutely.
Now let's go a bit about your role. So you are heading up HR Tech. If you would describe your role in an elevator speech, how would you describe it to someone who has no idea what we talk about?
So, as I said, my organization is responsible for implementing, maintaining our global HR system. So, when we talk about whether it's hiring an employee or terminating an employee, it's empowering the system to support the process. And I drive that home each and every day. The system doesn't drive the process drives the system.
I
So
love
I
that.
have experts within each of the different areas, whether it's total rewards, benefits, the talent, performance, core staffing details. I have leaders who really know their stuff when it comes to Workday and what Workday can do for our partners, whether it's business partners, whether it's our COEs, managers, colleagues. It's not about HR doing the work for managers and colleagues. It's about allowing managers and colleagues to own their own data and allowing the system to do that following our hire to retire processes.
Amazing. There's so much in there, Lisa. That's a you have practice for this elevator speech?
No, no. I am in elevators quite a bit.
That's true.
I
That's
have a lot
true.
of practice.
No, amazing. Yeah, and this really sums it up nicely, right? The process drives the system, the process drives the technology. And we are
Yes.
not about there, doing someone's job, but we are enabling them to get their job done in a better way, better fashion. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you started to talk about the experts in your team, and you also said you have a team of 25. How do you have your team structured? Is it according to the processes or according to the technologies, or it's a matrix of both? How do you have your team structured?
So I have a functional lead who partners with each of our COEs. We have a talent COE, so therefore I have a functional lead who is their point of contact, anything system related. And the talent team consists of talent, performance, talent acquisition, learning. So all of that fits within one functional lead. And then she has a team of developers. So it's the functional lead who has that ownership of partnering with the COE to set that roadmap, that strategic direction of where do they want to go in terms of their processes, and the system will follow. So I have a functional lead for talent, for total rewards, for core HCM. Now that's a difficult one because you really don't have a COE when it comes to organization structure and hiring. So we partner a lot with our shared service organization as basically the COE for our functional lead of core HCM. We also have a functional lead for security and reporting. She's a part of everything. Any of the changes we know, that's my background. I was a functional lead in security and governance, so that's my passion. And then we also have Workday Extend, which we procured, about, I guess it's 2.5 years ago now.
Wow, you were one of the early ones, right?
Yes. And we've built about 14 applications using Workday Extend. So we have strong partnership with Workday. I have a functional lead who supports Workday Extend and also our ServiceNow functionality and capability. So partnering closely, again, with our shared services organization to make sure our case management tool has the functionality it needs for them to be effective in their job.
Amazing. And when we drill in a bit, Lisa, on the functional leads versus the COE, where is the handover? And maybe I tried to explain with my words, right? You have on one hand, you have like the philosophy, how do we want to do performance management? How do we want to do talent management? Then you need to somehow translate that philosophy into a working process, and then the working process into the technology. Where's your team starting or taking over from the COE, and where's the COE finishing?
It's a challenge for us. So the COE is certainly the expert when it comes to performance, to talent. But oftentimes they're not the technology expert. That's where my functional lead comes in. So how many times do we hear, well, just show me what the system can do, and then we'll come up with our process. And it's about, hold on a second, if we focus on that, now we're looking at the system to drive the process. So instead, let's develop what is that ideal state in terms of the process. And then we will take that and look at what the possibilities are. That's where we can then show what the art of the possible. And if they want to make any adjustments, oftentimes they need to because of the limitations of our tools. Our tools aren't perfect. They never will be. They're not going to solve everything. But part of our goal is that we don't customize. We have a SaaS solution, which means we configure within the lines of what the system can do. We won't customize. That is a last resort. So partnering our technology, our functional leads, then work closely with the COE to say, I understand this is your process. This is what we can do. This is what we cannot do, and what we have to look at and revisit. But that's where Workday Extend has come in and has been a huge benefit to be able to meet those limitations and sometimes allow us with a workaround that isn't truly customization.
Yeah, amazing. I think this is very, very important from a handover perspective. This working hand in hand between the COE and the technology team and doing the process jointly, like this, you can really impact it. And I think what I also often see is that sometimes the colleagues in the COE are getting too much into the bells and whistles of technology versus what do we truly need to achieve what you want to achieve, and what is it that you truly want to achieve, right? And helping them across that is important, and that your team is doing this, it's fabulous.
Yes,
There's
and
one question
AI into the mix, and now it just opens up a whole new layer of, hey, that's something cool that we can use. Well, let's talk about what our requirement is for usage, and then we can look at the AI.
Exactly. I cannot agree more, Lisa. I'm having this conversation also on a regular basis, right? What is your guiding light? Is it like, hey, there's something shiny new called Gen AI, let's do something with it? Or is it like, what's the problem you want to solve? Maybe Gen AI is a solution, maybe something else, but let's focus on the problem you have, right?
Yeah.
And not at using the shiny new thing. Yeah.
Definitely.
Lisa, I was wondering then, how do you report? Are you reporting into the HR organization, or are you reporting into the technology organization?
I report into the HR organization. That was a conscious decision that we made when we separated, to make sure that my organization has the unique capability to be able to, we call it, to speak both languages. That we can talk to DT, that's what we call our IT organization. We can speak their language, and we can also speak the language of HR. Because oftentimes when you try to connect our DT team with our HR team, sometimes the message just isn't clearly understood. So we're able to take that technical jargon and translate that into a way that we're talking about HR and the business needs. So that's at this point, that's where we sit. And it just makes sense for us to be able to have that close connection with our HR colleagues, yet still maintain that very close partnership with DT.
I like that kind of approach as well, because as you said, like this, you can attract talent that has a technology component, but still is functionally anchored and understands the HR lingo and the HR process. You don't need to be a perfect expert in how the best performance management process is run and what's the philosophy behind it, right? That's for the COE experts. But
yes,
being able to understand what they are saying and being able to translate this, that's fantastic.
yes,
But also what I see in addition to that, which I believe is a big advantage, is like this, you can hold both sides of the workday relationship, the technology one and the functional one. And when I think about Workday, this is also how they are structured, right? They're product people, they are HR and technology folks. They cannot just talk to one of them. They need both so that they can be impactful.
yes, definitely.
That's and another one that you said that I want to emphasize on, you do not customize. I'm not sure about you. You have by now so much technology background and history, if you don't mind me saying, but you're pretty sure you have made your own. You made your own focus on customization and what it got you into when you, for example, moved in HP to Workday or in Otis now. Tell us, what are the pitfalls of customization that you see?
So many examples. When you customize, number one, as soon as you have an upgrade of a system or a new release, now you could impact the functionality of what you customize. When we first separated, we had not at Otis yet implemented Workday globally. It was about a 6-year journey that UTC had spent in implementing Workday, and
Wow.
we still didn't have it in every country.
Wow.
So when you think about an implementation spanning years, and you talk about it was basically, what does a country need? Let's make that happen. Okay, let's move a la carte, basically functionality. So number one, it wasn't consistent.
Wow.
It was very customized. Instead of having the tough discussions to be able to say, I know we could do that, but should we? Just because we can doesn't mean we should. That's something that I've been saying for years. And so when we first separated, our first goal was we had to get Workday everywhere. And we had to make sure that it was a consistent experience. We actually came up with guiding principles that to this day, we've tweaked them a little, but we still have those guiding principles. So number one, we implement globally where we can. Now we know we're in 4 different regions. We have European Works Councils. We have China PIPL. We know it's not always feasible to implement Big Bang right away. However, we're not going to implement over a 6-year period because you never get out of implementation. So that's our first guiding principle. Next, access for all. At Otis, we have 3 different types of colleagues. One, we have colleagues like me who sit in front of a computer all day, and we, it's natural for us to sit and work on the computer. Then we have our mechanics who don't sit in front of a computer. They sometimes will go to the branch, but their day consists of going from location to location, whether it's servicing, modifying elevators, or installing new equipment. And then the third type is our factory employees. They go to that factory each and every day. They don't sit in front of a computer. There may be a kiosk available to them. So for us, it's about make sure all 3 different types of colleagues, we're not just looking at those sitting in front of a computer, but making sure mobile. is available to all, that it's a positive, consistent user experience.
Yeah.
So the next guiding principle is using out of the box, no customization or limit. And that has been critical for us. Consistent experience, as I said before, and then use the tools. How many times do we hear, well, I get this in the system, and then I'm going to go over here and send an email, or I'm going to call someone for approval, or I'm going to
Yes.
send them an instant message, or
Yes.
now I'm going to take this report and export it into a spreadsheet,
Yes.
and I'll create a pivot table, and I'll do all the work because that's what's comfortable to us.
Yes.
Instead of how do we use the tools to make our lives easier?
Yeah.
Just because you're comfortable with, well, I do pivot tables all the time. That's easy. No, that's work. And I pay you for your mind, not for your pivot experience and expertise. So using the tools, that's our fifth guiding principle. That to us, just from the time of separation, anytime we have a big decision, whether it's implementing a new product or enhancing it, every decision we say, does it align with our guiding principles? And it helps to drive us to our decisions.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I love those principles. And maybe going a bit there, when it comes to decisions around a new product, like I think we all have made the experience that sometimes colleagues come to us and say like, hey, have you heard about this new shiny tool here? I would love for us to implement that. What do you say? How does this work in Otis? Who has the decision rights on what is implemented, and how do the conversations flow?
Oh, what a great question. And we have a lot of opportunity here because at Otis, and I'm sure this is we're still 5 years into our independent company journey. We have a lot of systems, probably more systems across all of our different organizations than we should. And so the first question when someone says there's this shiny new tool, I would love to have this. The first question we really ask is, well, what are your requirements?
Yes.
What is it that you require from this system? I get that it's this shiny, agile, cool user experience tool, but what truly do we require? And then the next thing we do, and this isn't a popular step in the process, but now it's, do we already have this functionality in one of our global systems? Because we pay a lot of money for Workday, for ServiceNow, and so I get that it's not shiny, it's not agile, it's not cool, gaming, gamification, Gen AI, and our global tools are getting to that. It's just, if we can meet it with our global tools and we already pay for it, that's our first go-to solution. And then if still the answer is no, we just can't meet that need, we have other things, certainly Workday Extend, we have ServiceNow Lifecycle, there's so many digital modules. We'll look at that, as well as soon as we start to bring on this local tool, or we ask two questions. Number one, are you global? Number two, can you support it via mobile? So if any of those two questions isn't a yes for this cool, shiny new tool, we just can't even look at it. We have in the 80 countries about 38 languages that people speak at Otis. And this isn't about, oh, sure, English, everyone speaks English. No, that's not the case. So if it's not a global solution and doesn't meet our needs with 38 languages, I mean, it's complex. It's a lot of these small, cool tools can't meet that need. If we can't do it and think of all 72,000 of our colleagues, then we really need to discuss whether it's the tool for us.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more, Lisa. And if I may add two additional points that I try to make when I have these conversations. Number one is, do you really want that our colleagues need to adjust to a different experience? Because every technology works different, looks different, feels different. And number two, do you really believe that everything that you see in this shiny new tool will be utilized by the employees? Because in my experience, and would be great to get your view on this, Lisa, in my experience, around 70 to 80% of the functionality that you provide is actually used. The rest is, maybe one or two people use it, but the majority is not using it, and therefore it's not worth going for this extra.
I actually wrote those two things down because those are two additional questions that need to be asked. I couldn't agree more. Within a tool, you have to look at the usage, how many people use it, and oftentimes it's about, well, it might be more difficult for our colleagues knowing, will I go here or do I go here? But it'll make our lives easier. Part of, and one of the things we've discussed, do we add this as a guiding principle, is it's about the colleague experience.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a consistent experience, but also one of the things I love hearing from you is your experience with just usage, colleague experience, making sure that our tools, that we're looking at it from the colleague perspective rather than, well, it's easier for us. 72,000 versus 20, 30, 40 people. We really have to think about what's easier for the 72,000.
Exactly. That's a very different relation. And you're driving in two areas, Lisa, that I would like to also go into, but one at a time. I'm getting excited here. So you already talked your technology stack. You utilize Workday, you utilize ServiceNow. What else is in your technology stack? Are these the two? And then what else? What do you use for payroll? Do you have any additions from a talent acquisition perspective? How does your technology stack look like?
So from a payroll perspective, and if I could just take a step back to talk a little more about our journey at Otis, I told you we didn't have Workday everywhere on day one of separation. So that was our first step, to make sure we had Workday everywhere. The next thing we realized was, well, people aren't using it. Why is that? Well, we have 80 different payroll systems across the globe, and it's not connected to Workday. So when you have to enter data into two systems and one of them has an impact on how we pay people, which do you think people are going to update first?
Yes.
And so the second thing we realized was, okay, now we have to connect Workday to payroll. And so as part of this, and we had in 80 countries, we have had 80 different payroll systems. We've really worked hard on our journey to simplify. And so ADP has become our payroll provider. Now, whether it's Celergo, Global View, Enterprise, we certainly have different flavors of ADP, but we implement ADP, and then the next thing we do is connect Workday to payroll, because what our strategy is, you should require entering data once with the confidence that that data will flow to the systems that it needs to go to. And that
single source of truth.
Yeah, you can't expect people to have to enter data multiple times. We're too busy. We have too many things to do. People are going to focus on what's really important, and then everything else may or may not happen after. So ADP, we're almost done with that strategy. We have about 10 to 15 countries yet that we need to complete, and we need to connect Workday to the payroll system.
Wow.
From a talent acquisition perspective, we do use Workday for recruiting, but we also use tools for our recruiters like Avature. We use HireVue. We're looking now, again, the whole strategy for us is about self-service.
Yeah.
Why do we need to pay recruiters to make sure they can schedule an interview
Yes.
between a candidate and a manager? Let the candidate say, here are the
Yes.
available times.
Slots.
I'm going to
Pick one.
schedule myself
Yes.
for an
Yes.
interview. So self-service, we're looking at that as our future roadmap. And also, as I told you about our journey, making sure Workday was everywhere, making sure Workday connected to payroll. Now our next step in the journey is time and attendance or workforce management.
Yeah.
It's sort of the trifecta of
Yes.
making sure everything's
Yes.
connected, making sure we're paying people accurately, efficiently, and so it just keeps building on itself.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, looking at talent and performance, content development, talk about cool, shiny new things. There's so much Gen I out there, so many cool applications when it comes to content development. But again, talking about how do we get there in terms of what do we already have? What do we need to build on, and how does it connect with the tools that we already have? So our application portfolio continues to grow while still making sure that we're building on the foundation of the two global systems that we have.
Lisa, honestly, I am almost scratching my head thinking through how old Otis is and how much you have achieved. This is amazing, right? If I get the math right, over 60 countries you've already done from a payroll perspective. If you have 10 to 15 outstanding from the 80s, this is massive by itself. Workday, standardization, harmonization, rollout is massive as well. That is, wow, you've been busy.
We certainly have, but we couldn't have done it without strong leadership.
Yeah.
And one of the analogies that we use is a rowing team, where if you're all in the same crew, in the same boat, and we all need to be rowing in the same direction at the same pace.
Yeah.
So it's through working together, having the tough decisions, and having the leadership to support to say, this is our focus and this is what we need to do. I feel like we can achieve anything. We have amazing leadership. I have an amazing team, and I probably don't tell them enough, but I feel like that we can achieve anything. When you have those, my team hates to say no. It's just not with them. It's like, it's not about no, it's about, well, maybe not right now. Maybe let's look at this and reprioritize, which is also challenging. But when there's a limitation, let's say in Workday or any tool, and you have to go back to your partner and say, I'm sorry. I know that's a requirement that's in your process. We're just not able to achieve it because of having that characteristic that we don't like to say no. And we don't want to customize. It's about, well, what other options, what other workarounds do we have? My team is amazing. And I tell them, let's just continue to be amazing. And they know if we come to our partner and say, I'm sorry, we've exhausted all possible options, they know and they trust now that we have absolutely looked far and wide to try and find a solution.
That is very cool. That is amazing. And now your team has heard it from you, and they can repeat and re-listen to it whenever they want. Yes. Now, Lisa, the other aspect that you started to talk about is experience for the end user. For me, HR technology and employee experience are very close interrelated because through the technology, we create experiences. How do you, yourself or at Otis, how do you define employee experience, and what role does it play in your daily work and your team's daily work?
Oh, we now have our own, within HR, we have an organization called colleague experience.
Mm.
So at first, and when I first heard you speak and talk about that, that's part of your role and how you've done this. At Otis, we made the conscious decision that we would partner
Mm.
technology and a colleague experience organization. So that is their one focus. My team
Mm.
knows technology. My team, it's all about here's how you use it. Where that team comes in and asks the very tough questions like, well, what does the colleague experience look like? What if the colleague gets an error message? What if the colleague, what if dot, dot, dot? We
Yeah.
hear it all. And that team does a lot of what I've heard that your organization has done, going out, creating those focus
Mm.
groups,
Mm.
having those discussions about what's your feedback today on our current processes, where we think, hey, workday could be great, it could meet their needs. A colleague is going to look at it and say, I don't have time for this. This is
Yes.
too complex. I can't
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah.
So for us, our colleague experience is like the journey and I try not to use colleague or experience in the definition. So truly, it's the journey that they
Mm.
experience in having to complete something. So it's about, okay, when someone tells me I need to go and plan compensation for my team, tell me where to go. And
Yeah.
then it should be intuitive in terms of, okay, I've got this, it's going to guide me. And we've heard of all different tools that you can have that sit on top of the current system,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, that it'll take you step by step how
Yes.
you do
Yes.
that.
Yes.
But then you need to translate into 38 languages. Anytime that you have a change, you have to change that instruction and change it in 38 languages. So for us, it's about the tool needs to be intuitive and it needs to be something. So my team puts together, here's how it will work. Colleague experience comes in and says, this makes no sense, or
Yeah.
where do I go if I have a question? So they look at it through a lens that no matter how hard I or my team try, we know the system. And so from our experience, it's like, yeah, it's intuitive. It's good. We're good to go. And coming in from a different lens to say, as someone who isn't an expert in the system, I'm here to tell you that you're a bit misguided in how you've developed this or what the
Yes.
experience is. So having that partnership, I think, has been so good for us because it's helped us to open our eyes to be able to see, all right, yeah, I get it. Or,
Yeah.
hey, in this last project, this is what we heard. Let's make sure and leverage that because it's making us smarter too.
Yeah.
And it means, we're not taking it all in terms of, yeah, what we're producing, we know is right on. It's the right thing for our colleagues. It is a separate entity coming in to say, I know you think it is,
Yeah.
but let's
Yeah.
make it better.
It's so valuable, hey? It's nothing that comes to your mind naturally, but as soon as you then hear it from the colleague experience team,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I get it now. It makes sense,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yes.
you do not see the tree before the forest.
I like
Uh,
that. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Now, thank you, Lisa. I would like to pivot a bit. I think we have a very good understanding of, how your technology stack is organized, how your team is organized. What I would like to do is get a bit of a day in the life of Lisa. When you think about a regular day, what is it? What are the business topics that are usually arriving at your desk, and how does a regular day in your life look like these days?
Well, I work from home, so my commute is rather short, although some days it's tough. I have 3 dogs and 2 cats, so I mean, there could be a traffic jam in the living room to get here. So sometimes that's tough. But as I'm sure for many of us, a day in my life is made up of too many meetings. And it's something that I've struggled with, and that I've set a goal for myself to make sure that those meetings that I'm in, that there's a true reason why it's me being
Yeah.
in that meeting, versus I have strong functional leads where they're capable. They don't need me in that meeting. So it's about looking at my calendar and making conscious decisions around what do I need to be there for to
Yeah.
add value versus helping my team grow so that they can take ownership aligned to our guiding principles. So Otis pays me to think. Otis pays me to set that strategic
Yes.
direction and partner with our leaders to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And
That's amazing.
so, yeah, that's what it's about for me. And it's about having those relationships, forming those relationships. So, yes, it does sometimes mean I have to set up a meeting rather than just calling someone on the phone, just because of, I mean, we're all over the globe.
Yes.
Oftentimes it's a different time zone.
Yes.
So, really, things that I'm thinking about are what's our roadmap to continue our journey to make sure that we're building off of what we have today. Certainly not sitting idle in terms of, all right, we've implemented this, we're good. We have hire to retire processes that there are things that we're just learning about. Spreadsheets that are maintained, paper documents where it's like, let us help. Let us automate, digitize this so that our business partners, our colleague services, our shared services team can focus on their customers and their work that they need to do rather than managing a spreadsheet. So making sure that we're meeting their needs. And then how, as I said before, digitize, automate. Always looking for those opportunities and how we can make everyone's lives easier in a digital world.
Lisa, talking about those opportunities, any interesting project you're currently running to help the digitalization?
Well, as I said, our hire to retire processes, so we've documented them all now. And it's very detailed. Our playbooks, our standard operating procedures. It's about taking a look at those and seeing where we have the opportunities to digitize. So moving into a centralized shared services organization, there's so much history in terms of personnel files. Oh, goodness gracious. When you think about the filing cabinets that we have of personnel files all over the globe, and you think about data retention policies, you think about what you can store digitally versus what has to stay on paper copy. So we need to look at digitizing all of that while making sure we're adhering to data retention laws, and then a location where to store that so that it's retrievable. And we know some of the data retention laws in some countries are decades and decades to make sure, what the chances of retrieval, making sure we're prioritizing what needs to be easily retrievable versus, okay, we can retrieve it, but it's not as common or frequent that we would expect to retrieve it. So that's a big initiative for us, as well as I said before, the time and attendance.
Yeah, amazing. These are big projects. I'm pretty sure that will take a few more weeks and months from you.
Yes.
Lisa, when you then think about success of your job, how do you measure, or how does your boss measure if you are successful, yes or no? What's the KPIs you are looking at that you determine your success, or how do you go about that?
This has been a challenge for me because as we separated 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I mean, the things we did were amazing because we didn't have that before. So I
Yeah.
felt like, not that the bar was set low, but we set high expectations for ourselves.
Yeah.
So our leadership team, our HR organization, I feel like we've exceeded their expectations. However, every year it will get harder. And
Yeah.
we don't have those measurable KPIs. Sure, we measure, we report on here's how many cases that we've completed, here's how many defects we've had. But in terms of measurable value, ROI, I don't feel like we have strong KPIs to be able to say, here's the goal we're setting for ourselves. Did we achieve it? We just, thank goodness, I have such an amazing team that they set the bar high for themselves. But in terms of our partners, the regions, the COEs, what are their expectations of us, and did we achieve them? Did we fall short? Did we exceed those expectations? I struggle with what are those measured KPIs that we can leverage and be able to report on. I don't have that answer yet.
Well, we all need something to, get up in the morning and look into, right?
Yes, definitely.
And Lisa, when you then, leave a bit that today aside, you already talked that, the company Otis is paying you for strategy, for your vision. Where do you see HR technology at Otis in 3 to 5 years? What is your picture that you want to have achieved by then?
Gosh, well, when I retire, we've done everything we set out to do, and we can sit back and eat bonbons. No, that will never happen. The pace that technology is growing and advancing year by year, month by month, quarter by quarter is just amazing. So where do I see us? I certainly see us being having the Gen AI, being able to automate, and the predictive analytics and all that goes with that in terms of allowing our HR colleagues and our colleagues and managers to be able to focus fully on the customers and why we're here doing business, that the HR piece of it, the systems, it is fully functional, self-service, digitized, making everyone's lives easier. And that will we ever achieve that will continue to grow. But it's about no spreadsheets, no manual work, and having that work centralized to be able to do that efficiently.
A digitized function that is not in the way of employees getting their actual job done.
Yes.
Beautiful.
You said it so much better. Thank you.
No. I
No.
for sure not. I just tried to synthesize it. And
Yes, thank you.
you already mentioned Gen AI, Lisa. Do you have any interesting use cases or test scenarios? What do you think about Gen AI, and how do you use it today or are thinking about it today?
Well, we certainly have some opportunities within content development and Gen AI, and that automatic generation of the content that we want to be able to leverage. We have a lot of ideas and opportunities for that. So that's one area. Another, and this has been tried even by Workday. They've tried to do things like predictive analytics in terms of retention or attrition. I certainly see being able to get smarter around predicting, what allows someone to be more engaged in terms of, and having that career development. That's another big area for us. So using Gen AI to be able to, using skills to be able to identify who we have, what we have, and what the career progression is, and then what development activities you can do to get you from where you are to where you want to go. So in the talent space, I see so many opportunities for Gen AI. Now, total rewards, I think the same thing. We just haven't, my team hasn't been as involved in that yet. Certainly, I mean, when we talk about business partners and org design, we have a lot of challenges around org design and the tools. And, I know Workday has tried with Org Studio with using drag and drop, which is certainly something that our business partners want. But I think having that Gen AI application or usage to be able to say, here's what it is today, here's what I want it to be tomorrow. Now do that for me instead of now we have to backtrack. All right, how many org moves? How many soup orgs do we need to create? It takes like
that is
expertise
amazing.
from so many different teams. So being able to automate that and using Gen AI, there are so many applications, and we're just on in the beginning of being able to identify those opportunities.
That's amazing. Lisa, I was first getting excited about the talent aspects that you were mentioning, because I love investing into that area. I believe this is the area of the future for us in the HR technology space, because this is where the music will play. This is where we'll be needed the most. But when you then described the org design, org structure, business partner opportunity, I've never thought about that. That's a really great idea, and it would make administration and support of restructuring so much easier and quicker.
Yeah,
it's such
let's do it. Let's go do that.
Let's do that. let's go to Workday and tell them that they have to do this tomorrow.
Yes.
No, thank you, Lisa. Before I love our conversation, but time is flying by. So I think I need to get to the last question. After looking into the future, let's come back for the final question to the today. When you think about today, what are the 3 biggest challenges that you see in your work today, and how do you approach them?
Wow. So the top 3, first is time. If only we had, if Gen AI could come up with, say, more hours in the day, that would certainly be helpful. So time, resources, we know, I think everywhere it's about doing more with less, which again goes back to Gen AI and how do we make our lives easier so that we can focus on what we need to do. I don't need to spend all this time reading email after email. Gen AI can summarize for me what I need to know when I come into work that next day. And Asia Pacific and EMEA emails come in. So, yes. So time, resources, and then of course technology. So with Gen AI comes a lot of risk, comes with a lot of security concerns. We as an organization certainly are going in with both eyes open, knowing as anything that's done within Gen AI is part of public domains and making sure that that's protected. So securing technology overall, but securing our data and our information. So those are the 3 challenges.
Wow. Lisa, that has been a really exciting conversation. I've learned so many new things about you. I didn't know that we started out on the year JK together. And your insights, thank you so much for sharing that. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye.